Welcome everybody to our first virtual recruitment event. We haven't done this before, and so we're going to be wanting feedback from people on what they liked and what they didn't like about this, because we hope this is going to be the first of many virtual recruitment events. I'm going to stick at some point my email into the chat so that if you have comments or additional questions, you can feel free to drop me an email and I will either answer them or I will send them to the right people to get them answered. So we've got a great group of people here tonight. I will introduce them very briefly. First, we have 3 members of the speech and hearing science faculty. All of us teach in the undergraduate program. So I'm Jan Weisenberger. I teach undergraduate hearing science and research methods. We also have on our call tonight Dr. Yuk-Young Bae, and Dr. Bae teaches undergraduate speech science, speech anatomy, physiology, and science. And we also have Dr. Evelyn Hoagland, and Dr. Hoagland teaches a variety of courses in our undergraduate major in the areas of language science, but also courses in disability studies, which is very closely allied with our major in speech and hearing science. To round out our faculty and staff group tonight, we have Maria Roth, who is our undergraduate advisor. We also have a number of our student ambassadors who we will get to a little bit later in the program. We also asked 3 former students in our program to come and join us tonight for a panel discussion. All 3 of these individuals have completed their graduate training and are working as professionals in audiology and speech language pathology. And they are first Megan Phillips, who is an audiologist at the Cleveland Veterans Administration Hospital. Second is Rebecca Vilsaint. She is in Greenville, South Carolina, with Clear Therapy Connections, which is a practice in South Carolina. And then finally, Allison Roof, who is a speech-language pathologist at the Mid-Ohio Educational Service Center in the Mansfield area. So we'll be asking each of them about their experiences in our program, as well as what their day-to-day life is like as a speech-language pathologist or audiologist. So I'm going to start by saying why you might have an interest in joining our major in speech and hearing science. This presentation tonight is targeted at students on our regional campuses, but also students on the Columbus campus who perhaps haven't decided yet on a major. So why consider taking on a major in speech and hearing science? Well, first, it turns out that career paths in audiology and speech language pathology, which are the 2 clinical arms of our discipline, are expanding. The job outlook is very good for both speech language pathology and audiology. I just went back to the internet today to pull numbers off because I like to update them periodically. Speech language pathology projects a growth over the next decade of 19%, with more than 13,000 new jobs created each year for the next decade. Audiology similarly projects a 16% growth over the next decade. So these professions are growing professions. They are not shrinking professions. Secondly, I went in and tried to get an update on what are the average salaries for audiologists and speech language pathologists. And I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for this. The average salary for a speech language pathologist in the United States is currently at about $89,000 a year. That's not the starting salary, but that's the average salary, $89,000 a year. It's a little bit higher in Ohio, actually. The average in Ohio is $92,000. For audiology, it is similar. It is $84,000 a year, and also a little bit higher in Ohio. So these are careers that will give you a good income and a good living. Finally, students who have done an undergraduate major in speech and hearing have also gone on to other careers. Not all of them go on to clinical careers in audiology or speech language pathology. We've had students go into special needs education. We've had students go into social work. We've had students go on to get degrees in nursing. Some go on to medical school. We've had students who've gone on to become lawyers with a strong interest in disability law. And so there are myriad other careers that a major in speech and hearing science can get you ready for. If you go on in audiology or speech language pathology, lots of diverse career options, different settings. You can work in schools or preschools, you can work in hospitals, you can work in private practice, you can work in nursing homes, you can work at government and regional agencies. You also can specialize in very diverse things. In speech language pathology, there are SLPs who focus on swallowing disorders, motor speech and articulatory disorders, stuttering, language development, neurodiversity, for example, language issues for individuals with autism, augmentative and alternative communication, aphasia, which is the loss of language capability due to stroke or brain injury, and then also individuals who are interested in serving the bilingual population. In audiology, you can focus on screenings. You can focus on hearing aid fitting, oral rehabilitation, industrial audiology. You can look at balance disorders. That's what I taught about today. I taught the vestibular system and balance disorders today. Cochlear implants, neurootology, tinnitus, and a variety of other specializations. So there's a lot of different things you can do in both of these careers. And so this is a great career choice. If you're interested in education, but maybe think a big classroom setting is not for you, you'd rather do your work one-on-one with a client. If you're interested in healthcare, but perhaps nursing, maybe you're like a student I talked to recently who said, I wanted to be a nurse, but I faint at the sight of blood. That's probably a non-starter. She's going to go on to a great career in speech language pathology. So thinking about an option in healthcare or thinking about an option in education, these are both great reasons to think about picking up a major in speech and hearing science and going on to a very rewarding career. And what I'm going to do now is turn it over to our undergraduate advisor, Maria Roth, who's going to talk a little bit about the undergraduate major.
Thanks. I'm Maria, as Dr. Weisenberger mentioned, so I'm going to talk to you about the major. I'm going to share my screen. And when I share my screen, I can't see anything from Zoom, so if there are questions along the way, if somebody could look at that or just let me know, interrupt, I'll be happy to answer questions as we go. All right. So just a little bit overview of the major and extension of what Dr. Weisenberger has mentioned. Speech and hearing is the study of normal and disordered functioning of the auditory system, the speech and swallowing mechanism, and language processing. So at Ohio State, we offer a Bachelor of Arts in Speech and Hearing Science, which provides the foundation for the communication sciences and disorders professions. If you are somebody who's interested in going to one of the graduate programs, we will certainly prepare you for most of those accredited programs. Our curriculum will align with the Ohio State graduate programs specifically, and then most of the programs out there have very similar requirements, but there can be some add-ons here and there, so we'll make sure you're prepared either way for those the programs that you're going to target. So why speech and hearing at Ohio State? We have smaller classes with as much as like 80 or less per class. We have maybe one or two classes that we have started to get a little bit bigger, and it's because they are part of the general education. But for the most part, our major classes are fairly small in comparison to some of the other majors across campus. We have roughly 300 students in the major, and we graduate somewhere around 70 students usually in our each spring. So students in the major will begin taking major classes as early as the very first semester. And to give an example, that includes the Introduction to Communication and its disorders, and the phonetics. That would usually be like the first semester, and then a language acquisition course also in the first 1 to 2 semesters as well. Our students interact with world-class faculty, three of which are on this meeting today, and they study differences and disorders in speech, language, swallowing, and hearing associated with autism, cleft palate, traumatic brain injury, stroke, chemotherapy, second language acquisition, cochlear implants, just to name a few. So to give you just an example of what the major entails, you will take the first three listed here I've already mentioned, but there's also courses that focus on bioacoustics, the anatomy, physiology, and science of speech, and the anatomy, physiology, and science of hearing. You'll look at language science and disorders. There's an introduction to speech language pathology and an introduction to audiology, research methods, and there's a multicultural course as well. And then you get options for your senior electives, disability studies in context, intro to autism. We have an oral rehabilitation course and a neurology course as well. Courses that overlap with our general education to prepare you and kind of supplement this major. So we do require an algebra or higher, such as like a pre-calculus or a calculus, statistics, a biology, a lifespan development, and a professional writing. A lot of these other requirements that are listed on the right-hand side, they overlap with the general education requirements. Outside of the classroom, we have three fairly active organizations. We have the National Student Speech Language Hearing Association. We have the Student Academy of Audiology, and we have the Ohio affiliate of the National Black Association for Speech, Language, and Hearing. I believe you can find NISLA, the National Student Speech Language Hearing Association, and the Ohio affiliate of the National Black Association for Speech, Language, and Hearing. You can find both of them on Instagram if you are on Instagram. They have a fairly active account where they will post things that they are doing throughout the semester, activities that they're doing both with faculty or visitors from outside who are active in the field. We have experiential opportunities that can supplement the major that I described on the previous slide. So we have an observation course in speech language pathology and audiology, which provides students the opportunity to see what the clinicians are doing and see various disorders that happen and what happens in an actual therapy session. We also have an aphasia initiative, which we have a service learning course where you can earn credit hours and get some hands-on experience working with patients who have aphasia that come in for a group therapy session, which students are really, really enjoying. And then we also work with departments across the campus. So we have similarly worked with otolaryngology, linguistics, psychology, and education, to name a few. We do have a few students who are interested in like vocal therapy. So we have a few students who also have like a minor or even a double major in music. And then Spanish is another cross department collaboration. For education abroad to further on the Spanish major, we do have an organized Spanish and speech and hearing double major. And incorporated into the 4 years, there's an opportunity to study abroad in Spain, where there is a speech and hearing clinic that the Spanish department has organized for students to work there as part of that abroad experience. We mentioned our student ambassadors. We have 3 of them on this meeting today, but we also have an ambassadors program that we invite students to participate in. If you are enjoying the major and want to kind of be a champion for the major and help us. But these students assist faculty and advisors with recruitment events and student support needs. So we do social media campaigns, college events, and we have some mentorships, just to name a few of the initiatives with our ambassadors. Dr. Weisenberg kind of already highlighted this slide. We have the job outlook across 2020 to 23 for speech language pathology, and then also the job outlook for audiology. That came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then the US News and World Report reported that SLP was number 11 among best healthcare jobs, while audiology was number 23. And then on the top 100 jobs, SLP is listed as number 31, while audiology is number 90. And then I think the list that I have here was already described by Dr. Weisenberger for the most part, but just to give you a visual of some of the areas that students will look at, if you aren't thinking maybe that graduate school and these clinical programs are for you, there are a wide variety of areas you can go into with this bachelor's degree. So healthcare is a big one. There's nursing homes, hearing conservation programs, hearing aid dispensary companies, hospital billing, do have rehab centers, and then within the schools, there's public health departments, and then governmental jobs, Department of Education. So there's a wide variety of things that you can associate this major with. I have my contact information listed here, and I can put it in the chat as well. But if you did have any questions or wanted more information about the major, or to look at what it would look like for you, where you are in your studies moving forward, I'm happy to answer those questions. My dot number is 595, so it's Roth.595. I listed out the department website, so if you had information you wanted to seek out on the website. And then I also listed out our chair, which is Dr. Young Bae, who is also on the visit or on the meeting today. If you look us up on a campus map, if you are familiar with the Columbus campus, we are considered western side of campus. But if you're taking these courses that I've described in this short slide, our faculty and instructors are traveling to the main part of campus for instruction purposes. So if you're thinking about living arrangements, you can really live anywhere and still access these classes because they're offered all over the main side of Columbus campus, not on West Campus in our facility. We do have a speech and hearing clinic though in Pressey Hall that offers some opportunities in the clinic. And then the aphasia initiative that I described earlier is located in Pressey Hall, which is the service learning opportunity. So the students that are coming to Pressey Hall are usually coming because they want to be over there because there's a lot of fun stuff going on for them to supplement their studies. So that is the end of my slides. And I will stop sharing. And there were, I think, there's just Dr. Bay putting some contact information in the chat. Does anybody have questions about anything that I've reviewed? If you do, feel free to pop them into the chat. We can answer. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end too.
Oh, here's one. Is ASL required?
No, ASL is not required. The college does have a world languages requirement. And so A lot of our students do use ASL to fulfill that requirement. Um, if you took a foreign language in high school that was not American Sign Language, I usually encourage students to take the placement test to see if you might test out. Because if you take the foreign language from the start, it's 3 semesters. You have to be proficient through a third level. So you could choose to take ASL if you wanted to, or you could continue a language that you've previously taken. But we don't require ASL specifically. You can take any language that OSU offers.
The second question is about licensure. And the question is, if you're from California, but you go to school at Ohio State, how does that work with trying to eventually want to practice in California? And the answer to that is our graduate degrees are very portable. You can pick up those degrees and go pretty much anywhere with them. Pretty much every state has its own licensure process. And some states have reciprocal licensing agreements, but usually with states that are contiguous to them. But you can take this degree and you can take it to California and you can achieve licensure in California and practice as a speech language pathologist or an audiologist in California.
And Alexis, if you're taking ASL currently, you'll transfer those credits in, and then depending on how far you go with it, you could either pick up and continue it, or you would be done. You have to have the 3 levels of ASL.
Oh, and now we have a question that I'm not sure I know the answer to, and this is from Nadia. Can you please address international licensing because she is Canadian?
I don't have a good answer to that question, but probably again, licensing comes to it becomes a matter when actually after your graduation with your professional program. Megan, do you have some information about that?
A little bit. So one of my classmates, she moved to Canada after she graduated from Ohio State, and she applied for licensure in Canada. It's just pretty much the same thing that you have to work through in any other state. So she was successful at it. She's working there now. So it just takes, I think, a little bit more extra time than a state licensure, but it's transferable.
Was she one of our undergrads too? Because I might be thinking of the same student.
No, she
No.
was not.
I was gonna say we've had one student that I know who was from Canada, did her undergrad with us, and as far as I know, went on to a graduate program, and then I would assume the same sort of thing. So
The educational structure for speech language pathology and audiology is pretty similar in Canada to what it is in the United States. There are some countries where the educational process is very different from what you would get in the United States. And so there could be some extra hurdles in trying to get the ability to be licensed and practiced in some countries that are far away. But in Canada, there really is not a big problem. Okay, these are good questions. Any other questions before we move to the next part of our presentation tonight? And if you think of additional questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we're doing our panel discussion. So next up is our panel. And again, I'll reintroduce our 3 panelists tonight. Megan Phillips, who is an audiologist at the Cleveland VA. Rebecca Vilsaint, who is a speech language pathologist at Clear Therapy Connections in Greenville, South Carolina, and Allison Roof, who is an SLP at the Mid-Ohio Educational Service Center in Mansfield. So first of all, thank you guys so much for being willing to come and join us tonight. I'm going to toss out some questions for you, and you can all feel free to jump in, or I'll, target various ones of you and ask you these questions. So the first question I'd like to ask each of you is, how did you get interested in speech language pathology or audiology? And Megan, we'll start with you. How did you get interested in audiology? Did you know from an early age that you wanted to do it?
I probably didn't know until I was a senior in high school that I really wanted to do it. So both of my siblings, my two older siblings, uh, they both were diagnosed with hearing loss at a young age. So I've just kind of been around it my whole life, and I always felt like the odd man out. So I got to my senior year of high school and I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to advocate for them. So here I am. And I can't even work with them because I work at the VA now, but that's how I got involved in it.
Becca, how about you?
I would say I was in high school as well, and my mom was working in a school setting. So she would see the speech language pathologist come in and work with students. And she told me, that might be something you'd like to do, because I was thinking nursing or teaching, but wasn't quite set on either one. And so to me, it's like the perfect balance of, we could work in a medical setting, we can do educational things, and even do both if you'd like. So I really, I shadowed some therapists, and it just solidified it for me. So I knew going into college, that's what I wanted to do.
And Allison, how about you?
Mine was very convoluted. I did not know that I didn't even know what this field was until I was probably a junior in college. So like in my undergrad, my original major was biology pre-med. I did a double major in biology and psych, and I wanted to go to med school. And the closer I got to med school, the more I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I had taken a couple ASL classes on the Lima campus, and I met someone that was my partner. We got assigned to be partners, and she was a speech and hearing science major. And I thought that was interesting when we were talking about it, and it comes up a little bit in ASL because speech pathologists can kind of work with them as well, that deaf population. And so I kind of started asking her about it, and I figured out that she wanted to go to grad school and be an SLP. And so I started researching it, and one thing led to another. And I took all of the prereqs that I needed for grad school my last semester of undergrad, and then applied to grad school, got in right away, and here I am. And I love it. So
Wow. So for those of you that started on one of our regional campuses, what coursework at the regional campuses helped get you ready to make the transition over to the Columbus campus for the speech and hearing major? Becca, let's start with you.
Sure, I think that's a great question. I really did enjoy taking classes. I'm from Marion, Ohio, so that's where I went to, the Marion campus. And yeah, I just really felt like I was able to take some of my ASL courses there. That's what I took for foreign language. And that prepared me for the ASL courses I took in Columbus, including, I believe it was a culture and music class. And actually, one of my teachers in Marion was deaf. So I also felt that going to the regional campus gave me a variety of professors that I may not have had on the main campus as well. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. And also I feel like my biology courses that I took on those regional campus helped me getting prepared for the speech, anatomy, physiology, all the science related courses on main campus in our major.
Cool. What about you, Megan?
So I actually did not go to a regional campus. However, I did transfer in my freshman year. I went to University of Kentucky, and then I transferred in. But I would say a course and a couple important courses that I found to be really helpful, it was psychology, just a big general psychology course. I found it to be really helpful in our major, and just as we learn about the sciences. And probably I took a pretty aggressive writing course, and that was also very helpful because there are a lot of papers to write in undergrad.
That is the truth. Allison, what about you?
kind of similarly to what Megan and Becca said, being a biology and psychology major, I took all of those hard hitting courses of biology and psychology and all of that. And I feel like truly taking an anatomy and physiology class at the Lima campus was really beneficial when I went into Dr. Bay's class and she started talking about all the things. And I knew where all the things were. So definitely one of those, or anything more sciencey or geared towards that aspect for sure.
So what was the most challenging aspect of transferring to the Columbus campus for each of you? Allison, I think you've already told us, right? If you piled on all of those courses at the very end. So Megan, what about you? What was the most challenging aspect? Except that you didn't really transfer and you transferred in from Kentucky.
Yes, but I mean, I still transferred it, and so I kind of went, and I did not know. I knew some kids from my high school that were at Ohio State, but I think probably the most challenging thing was just like finding a place to live and finding friends in Columbus, and I think that's what made me kind of nervous, just like the social aspect of it. But I feel like it wasn't too challenging transferring to Ohio State, as educationally, just because I feel like they just take everybody that comes, and they're really open to transfers, and they were very helpful. I know Maria was actually helping me when I transferred. I remember she met me on the first day of my orientation, and it was really helpful. I think they just helped walk through everything for me.
Becca, how about you? What was the most challenging part of transferring into the Columbus campus?
Right. And I also went, I'm South Carolina now. I actually attended a college in South Carolina my freshman year. So I'm from Ohio, but I did transfer in as well. And so I was almost taking some classes in Marion and Columbus campus around the same time. So I would say what was difficult for me was the long days. I mean, and even Dr. Bay knows this, I had to come to her 8 a.m. class and be there and plenty of time to take the bus onto main campus, things like that. So I would have to have the logistical driving and figuring out my days of being there since I didn't live on campus. I still lived an hour away. But I would say I feel that it was a benefit in another way. It made me more dedicated and independent. I took my learning and my studying a little bit more seriously, and I was also able to do it during that time of being on campus. So it worked out well in the end.
Well, that's all good. Yeah, you guys are impressive. Doing that commute on a daily basis, that's a lot of doing. So yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing now. And actually, Becca, we'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about what does your day-to-day look like?
It's pretty interesting now, right? I really am doing several different things, but I was able to start a solo private practice here in Greenville. So I'm working with private clients, but I'm also providing some teletherapy services to schools. And actually, I've worked with schools in Illinois and now schools in Washington State. So that's been really interesting. I'm learning some things about their state, even though I've never been there. And I really enjoy the school setting. So it's been a way for me to keep a foot in the school setting and then also the private practice and clinic work. So a typical day for me, I mean, even this morning, I went to a student's house and was working with her on literacy and spelling and some of those language difficulties she has. And then I came home and I worked with the school today, did some student sessions online and paperwork. And then I have an actual teletherapy client, private practice client later this evening. So it's busy days sometimes, but other days are less work. So I love the flexibility. I would say that's the best thing I feel that I'm experiencing right now.
So most of your clients are kids.
Yes, I mostly do pediatrics.
What kinds of what kinds of disorders, what kinds of disabilities, what kinds of differences do you see in the clients that you work with?
Right. I work with several clients who have autism, several who have articulation, phonology disorders, but I'm also really experiencing a lot of students struggling with reading. And a lot of it is, you see a lot of history of having speech sound disorders, and it plays into, they have such a hard time hearing the sounds and they're having a hard time learning to spell and read. So it really affects all of their academics. And that's why it's really rewarding to work with the clients on all of those things. So our scope of practice is really broad, and I'm enjoying working on the academic education side of things.
Okay, Megan, tell us a little bit about your daily life. I suspect it's rather different from what Becca just said.
Yes, it kind of is. So, I work, my schedule's the same every day. So I work 9-hour shifts. So I come in at 7 and I leave at 4:30 every single day, except Fridays I get to leave a little early. And the nice thing is I have off every other Tuesday. But so that's kind of how everybody's work is kind of structured a little bit different. Their times are structured different. Average day for me, I have a little bit of admin time in the morning, where I can prep for my day, and then I either have some hearing aid fittings where I'm, showing patients how to use their hearing aids, fitting them with their hearing aids, and teaching them everything they need to know about their hearing aids. I'll do repair clinic, where anything that might be going on with the hearing aids, or if they need extra instruction, I'll do those kind of appointments. Or I'll also do hearing tests as well. So, and tinnitus evaluations. For those who don't know, tinnitus is the ringing, buzzing, hissing sounds that's in your ear. It's very subjective, but I'll help out with those as well. And yeah, that's pretty much all day, every day is just patient care. But I really enjoy it. So
I read somewhere that hearing loss is the #1 reason why veterans go to the VA for treatment. So it's a big responsibility because there's a huge need among our veterans.
there is, and we keep getting more and more, and we don't have enough room for them all. So if anybody wants to be an audiologist at the VA, they are always hiring.
Need you. We absolutely need you. What about you? What is your daily life like? You do 2 different things.
I do. So my day can kind of vary. But since I do work for Mid Ohio ASC, I am contracted to Bucyrus Elementary School. So I do kind of the city school. I work with first grade through 12th grade. So I see a variety of kiddos. I also work in our resource rooms. I have 3 of those. So it can look different day to day, kind of depending on what school I'm at, the kids that I'm working with. But in the schools, I see a lot of stuttering. I see a lot of articulation, language disorders. Any of that. I work with a bunch of kids that have autism. I have a couple kids that have CP. We work a lot with AAC in our district. So all of that. And then I do PRN at Morrow County Hospital. So actually today, yesterday I got 2 consults for swallowing. So I went and did those, and one of them needed a modified. So I went back today and I did that modified today. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good, but I do the swallowing part. Had to make him NPO, but we will keep trying and we will rehab the swallow. But so my day can kind of look different, but definitely at our elementary school, I work kind of an 8 to 4 situation, and then PRN whenever they need me.
So that's interesting. As a speech language pathologist or an audiologist, you actually can do more than one thing, and can see a wide variety of different types of clients. All right, so now I'm going to ask the sort of the money question, not about salary, but Megan, what's the very best thing about your job?
So honestly, I really love my patients. All my patients are veterans who have served for our country, and they always bring a lot of her. And every day I'm just reminded of how thankful I am for them, that they served our country. It just always has to be the patients.
Wow. Becca, what's the very best thing about your job?
I think it's just the flexibility that I've been given in this career to change what I'm doing or who I'm working with, but also really to work with a variety of students with the different challenges that they have, and to step in and just work with them is so rewarding for me. So just working with those people is great. So I really enjoy both of those things.
Allison, what's the very best thing about your job?
Kind of like Becca said, I love the versatility, but for me specifically, it's the kids. I do this for the kids. They are just incredible. Just the lives that you get to touch. And sometimes I've definitely worked in districts where you have to be kind of like the sole person in their life that is consistent. And it's really a blessing to be that for someone. So definitely the kids.
Well, I want to thank all of you. The last question I would ask you is, do you have any tips for students who might be thinking about taking their first steps into this major? Any advice for them? And Allison, we'll start with you.
That's my favorite. Okay, so I would definitely just say get out there. I know if you are around the Mansfield or Bucyrus area, I would love to come and you can shadow me and see what I do. I think that's really the best way to kind of see what we're doing. I know from my experience, I actually went into grad school not ever having observed a real live therapy session. I actually did all of my clinical hours on like master clinician, I think is what it was called. So definitely just going hands-on. If you would like to see any of us in action, I'm sure any of us would be grateful to have you and just get to experience what we do on the daily, which is just so incredible.
Becca, how about you? What tips do you have?
I agree. I would just say go for it. If you're thinking about doing the major, I would say go ahead and start because I think we had mentioned how the job field is just booming and there are so many needs. And even if you don't know who you want to work with yet or what setting, there will always be a job for you. And if you want to only see one certain type of client, you would be able to. If you want to see a big, huge variety, you would be able to. So that way, you know that your path of what's going to fit for you, you can get there with this career. And so this major and this school, it really has been amazing for me. And I think Megan and Allison can say that as well.
Megan, how about you? What tips would you recommend?
First and foremost, I think I always tell undergrads, get out there and shadow. If you're shadowing, you're seeing all the different parts of the field. Maybe you can even start to get a feel on if there's something special that you kind of are interested in, like swallowing or articulation disorders or, vestibular stuff. So that's all the balance stuff and audiology. There's a lot of little things. And I think was really helpful. I started shadowing when I was like a freshman, sophomore in undergrad, and I was learning stuff in the clinic with the audiologist that I was shadowing, and then I was speech pathology. I was able to I was recalling those things. I was like, oh, I saw that done in clinic, and it was easier for me to connect all the dots. And then I think another piece of advice is find people in the major, for sure. Find your study groups, find your people. They are going to get you through undergrad, because studying in groups and finding a good group of people. I mean, I still talk to some of the people that I studied with that we actually studied for Dr. Bay's anatomy exam together, and we're still talking to each other. And, I think that always helps, is just, finding friends.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Find your fellow travelers. Well, I want to thank everybody on our panel. I want to thank Megan. I want to thank Becca. And I want to thank Allison for being willing to join us tonight and tell us a little bit about their travels through the major, through grad school, and what they're doing now. And I think you heard very similar advice from all three of them. Get out there and shadow, get out there and get your hands on things. So in addition to opportunities like the aphasia initiative service learning opportunity, we also have groups of undergraduates who go out with Dr. Whitelaw, our clinic director, and do hearing screenings in the community. They go to early Head Starts and schools. They go to the Islamic Cultural Center to do outreach to populations who we don't normally get as much access to. So there are lots and lots of opportunities. I'm gonna put Laura Martel on the hot seat for a minute. Laura is the president of our NISLA chapter and one of our student ambassadors. Laura, talk just a tiny bit about NISLA.
Yeah, sure. So this is the Ohio State chapter of NISLA. There's National NISLA, which is on the national level. We're just a chapter within Ohio State. Like Dr. Weisenberger said, it stands for National Student Speech Language Hearing Association. We have social meetings, educational meetings. Our social meetings consist of just doing crafts, activities to get to know some other people in the club. Pretty much all of our students are pre-speech pathology or pre-audiology, although we do have some pre-OT students as well. Our second type of meeting is educational meetings, where we bring in SLPs, audiologists, OTs, music therapists, anything really related to the field to come in and speak about their journey and their opportunities that they've had along the way and what kind of advice they have for undergrads. We also have Faculty Fridays, where we bring in some of the faculty from the speech and hearing department. And Dr. Weisenberger is actually going to be joining us this Friday, which is very exciting. So we can't wait to hear from her on that. But those are just 3 of the many opportunities that NISLA offers to get involved with the major on a more social side.
So as Maria pointed out, and as Laura just told you, I also recommend getting involved with our student organizations, with NISLA, with SAA, the Student Academy of Audiology, and with MBOSLA, the other organization that Maria pointed out. These are very active groups, and they give you opportunities to learn about people in careers in the field, about related fields, about all kinds of things. And it's also a great way to make friends and spend some time with people who have similar interests to you. So I also noticed that Laura, you and some of our other student ambassadors have been hopping on the chat as people ask questions. Thank you for doing that. We really appreciate that. We're at about 6:50. And I wanted to make sure that we had time to allow for any questions that our other attendees on the call tonight haven't had a chance to ask yet. So now's the time. You can either do the raise hand or you can toss stuff in the chat as you prefer.
Hi, yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Sure, go ahead, John.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is John. I actually had a question about possibly having or taking the route of becoming a SLPA and then becoming SLP. Do you recommend just going directly as an SLP or getting practice as a SLPA?
Oh, that is a question that I am not going to be the right person to answer. Yuk Young or one of our panelists, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a good answer to that question. As far as I know, in the state of Ohio, we do not have assistant, correct? Please correct me.
Right. No, that's
Right.
correct.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think, are you, John, are you physically in California?
Yes,
If
I'm in California.
Yeah, so I think California SLPA actually is a route that you can actually go through and then continue your education at the master's program, etc. But I think in the state of Ohio, SLPA is not really available. Dr. Hoagland, do you have any additional information that you can actually plug in?
I am pretty sure there is one SLPA training program in Dayton, but it's not, SLPAs are not a position that's honored in Ohio. If it depends to me on your preference and your how you really want to handle your education. if you want to pace yourself and have various personal reasons you don't want to push through to a master's degree immediately, it could be a nice interim step, give you some experience, see exactly what you like, what you want to do before taking that next step. If you're not seeing it as that way of kind of getting your grounding before moving on, there's enough consistency in the education. You might want to just go ahead and jump in and go directly to the master's in a speech pathologist, because you may or may not find that there's enough benefit to doing SLPA on your way to the full professional. So there's a lot of factors that I can't address all of that, but it depends a lot on your personal priorities.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
We do have student ambassadors actually in our video call, and I think maybe if like they start introducing themselves, that can actually also, you know, spark some questions or interests from the student side. So can we actually take turns and then see if like our student ambassadors can briefly introduce themselves?
Sure. And then we also have more questions in the chat. So.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, Laura, why don't we start with you as our student ambassador?
Perfect. So, hi guys, I'm Laura. I am an undergraduate senior pursuing a major in speech and hearing with minors in disability studies and American Sign Language. I'm primarily interested in working as an SLP at a school for the deaf, and doing bilingual therapy in English and sign language.
And you're currently getting a fair amount of experience at the Ohio School for the Deaf.
Yep. It's very exciting being there.
All right. Why don't, Laura, since I called on you first, why don't you hand it off to each of our other ambassadors?
Yeah, sure. I'll hand it off to Madeline, and I actually have to sign off right now. But if you guys have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat, and you guys can send them my way. Thank you so much for having me. Madeline, go ahead.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline. I am a third year here at Ohio State. I am minoring in disability studies, and my primary goal in the future is to work with stroke patients, mainly in a clinical setting. And yeah, I didn't start as a speech and hearing science major. I started as English. So it was a very quick decision for me once I got to campus and I started exploring different opportunities for myself. English I chose because I like to communicate. Speech and hearing I chose because I want to help others communicate. So I love it here. I think it's OSU offers, amazing opportunities for observation and experience. The professors are amazing. And yeah, I can also put my email in the chat if anybody has any questions, but I know we're running low on time, so I want to hand it over to Tori really quickly, but thank you.
Hey, Tori.
Yeah, my name is Tori. I'm also a senior here at OSU. I'm applying for grad school right now to pursue a career in speech pathology. I would love to work with kids, probably in an outpatient care setting. And yeah, also like Madeline, I didn't start with speech and hearing sciences. I don't remember who said this earlier, but someone mentioned like starting as a nursing major. And that was totally me because I just knew I wanted to help people, and I knew that I didn't want like a typical desk job. So everyone was like, oh, nursing, that makes sense. But speech and hearing sciences has been so much more like specific to my actual passions and interests. And I just love the way that all of the classes have like intertwined both speech and hearing. And I feel like the professors, no matter what like side of the major you're in with your classes, I feel like the professors make sure that like you're getting a super holistic and cohesive education for the whole field, which is really like supportive and interesting. So yeah, I love it here. And like Madeline said too, there's so many opportunities to get involved at Ohio State and just across Columbus in general. So it's been really awesome experience being here.
So there's a question from Alexis in the chat about, are there jobs you can get during your undergraduate experience that would give you relevant skills and experience for your major? And the answer is absolutely yes. Quite a few of our students work at summer camps for children with a variety of different challenges and disabilities. And they get a chance to work one-on-one with children who they might later on see in the context of being a speech language pathologist or audiologist. Also, many of our students pursue what is called applied behavioral analysis, or ABA therapy. They can be certified as an undergraduate to do ABA therapy, where you work one-on-one with a client. In many cases, the client has autism, but in other cases, the client might have other developmental disabilities. One thing we haven't talked a lot about is getting experience in research. Quite a few of our undergrads get research experiences with faculty researchers in the department. I know Dr. Bay has students who work in her lab. I actually have students who work in my lab. Pretty much every faculty lab has undergraduate students who are part of that lab, and getting hands-on experience doing the cutting edge research that's going to change the way we do therapy in the future. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Somebody wants to know, are there links available to explore these options? Off the top of my head, I can't put them in, but if you send an email to any one of us, and all of our emails are now in the chat, we will be able to get you connected to some of those opportunities as well. These are, potential job opportunities. Okay, we are getting very close to time. Any last questions? So feel free to reach out to any of us at our email addresses. I want to thank especially Becca and Megan for joining us tonight, taking time out of their busy careers to join us. I want to thank all of our faculty who are on tonight. And I also want to send a special thanks to our student ambassadors and to Maria, who is our front line with advising. So we really hope that we've given you a good introduction to the field of speech and hearing science and the future fields of speech language pathology and audiology. We hope we've been able to convey a little bit about what an exciting career path you can have if you choose to go in this direction. So thank you to all of you who have been on the call tonight. And we look forward to hearing more from you, and we look forward to getting you into our major. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great to see you all again.
Great to see ya.
Bye, Megan. Bye.
It was good seeing everybody.
Good to see
Yeah,
ya.
good seeing you.